This video is sponsored by TameDog. Are you tired of having limited options and questionable quality when sleeving up your best decks? Worry not. TameDog sleeves are designed right here in Colorado, USA, made by players for players. They shuffle smoother and fit better than anything else on the market. A portion of each sale goes towards helping animals in need, and you can use promo code EBAM to save 5% off any order when you check them out at tamedog.store.
Hello, everyone. That is Austin, and I am Titus, and this is Everyone is Bad at Magic, where we untap, upkeep, and punt. Today we have one of our locals here. This is Nick, very good player, who has brought an interesting deck to the table. But before we go into that, we're going to go into the punter's confessional. So, do you have a punt for us, Nick?
Yeah, actually have one from the redemption event after the siege, where I was kind of storming off with an Avendo Brush Razor, which is a card that impulse draws every time you sacrifice a non-token permanent. And I had found a gamble to go get my Underworld Breach and discarded my Breach, which kind of threw me off of how I planned to win the game, and didn't realize that if I just casted the Goblin Bombardment that I had, I was able to sack Dargo and then recast Dargo to sack more things. And I played it out after the game, and I would have found a line if I had just realized that Goblin Bombardment wasn't just a combo piece; it can do other things as well.
Hindsight is 2020. And I can commiserate in my story as well. We we learn, but that unfortunately is a feels bad.
Yeah.
But to be fair, with the color combination we got going on, sometimes it might be a little bit of feels bad if you're gonna have to primarily use a gamble. Um,
Yeah.
just to go with that, I was also playing in the redemption event at the Siege, and I was playing in a three cannon pod. I don't remember if I was first, but I was definitely in a good place. I took somebody's Mystic Remora with a Ragavan, and I also got down Vivi with a Tandem Lookout. So I had drawn some cards, but I couldn't really storm off. I was primarily like holding interaction pieces, and I was kind of tapped out with no VV button either to use further. And the player who actually only at first had a Mana Vault, and they Lotus Petal Mana Vault for that earlier in the game. They then cast an Talisman of Curiosity to be able to cast a Gilded Drake. And yes, I had a Disrupting Shoal in my hand, but I didn't have a two-cost pitch, and the only other card was Pact and Negation. Maybe I should just let it happen, and I have a Sink in the Stupor, and I'll try to bounce it back to hand, something like that. So I let it resolve, takes my VV, and then they're just back in the game. And they get into the game where they get a Rhystic Study and later a Mystic Remora, and I should have just taken the risk on that, seen what cards I was able to see, maybe do some stuff in my upkeep. And opponents could have still had answers, but I feel like I definitely threw my lead there when I could have seen more options. So I wasn't it's a little down on myself about that.
I actually do also have a quick punt in the one game that I played this weekend. But ironically, it's also a VV game. I intuitioned the turn prior for um, the Curiosity pile. So Tandem Lookout, Curiosity, and Ophidian Eye. I was granted Ophidian Eye, and so I kind of sat there and waited for my opening, holding on to the two pieces of interaction in hand, three pieces of interaction in hand. One of them's my break trap though, so it's halfway dead. And I thought I found my window, and I shot my shot, burned through both pieces of interaction, didn't get there. Um, On the next turn, I drew Drift of Phantasms, which transmutes for a 3-drop, and I blanked on what I could get out of my deck. Turns out RHYSTIC Study is a really good card that happens to be a 3-drop.
It does indeed.
Especially playing with 2 Storm decks in the pod.
Yeah, that's a fair miss.
Might have drawn a
Well,
couple cards.
I later ended up pitching it to Misdirection, and it was a mistake. But oh well.
see, we live, we learn. Hindsight's 2020, right? Sometimes when you're in the games too, you feel a bit of pressure to be able to make a decision, and then we kind of miss out on what available lines there
Mhm.
are for us. All right, now that we're done with some of the mistakes that we've gone through, whether it was over this weekend or
Learning
otherwise,
opportunities.
learning opportunity. You know what? I like that one better. We're gonna make that more of the theme now as we move forward. Um, all right, Nick. So, can you tell us a little bit more before we go into the deck that you actually played at the Siege? How did you start playing Magic the Gathering? Was it 60 card, or what was some of your early experiences?
I think it was 60 card. It was very kitchen table. My friends in college just started playing, got interested, watched some videos, got like a starter pack, and we had another friend that had a bunch of cards from when he used to play. And my friends just kind of started building decks and playing a bunch. And I wasn't as into it as everyone, but I would like borrow their decks and play these really unofficial games where we're just like kind of trying to figure out the rules, just guessing at what some of them are. And eventually that developed into Commander, and still just kind of played their decks as they did the normal power creep thing that progresses it into CGH. And eventually we got to a point where we started using proxies, and I was going to be moving out here to Colorado, and I wanted to keep playing with them. So I looked a lot more into it and got my own deck and like learned how to play it and got out here and started playing locals. And that was like the first time where I was actually like working on building my own deck and not just and like trying to figure out how to play it super optimally instead of just picking up like someone's deck on a Saturday night that I had no idea how to play.
So, when you said started playing locals, did you jump into CDH pretty fast, or did you start off with the or with casual, or did you start looking into CDH?
Um, so we had been playing like for like 2.5 or 3 years, I think, before we got CEDH and I graduated college and moved out here. But like my own first Magic deck was a CEDH deck, and as soon as like I was started learning how to play it and got my proxy list in the mail, I pretty much started going to locals out here at level 7.
What was that
Okay.
first that CDH deck?
It was Dargo Timna.
So the first one was Dargo Timna.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
So what was kind of like the progression to where we got what we're going to currently talk about? So did it, because I remember meeting you on Sisay. So how long did
Mhm.
you spend playing Dargo Timna before you started switching around lists?
I played it for a couple months. It was probably never in like a fully optimal build because I just ordered some list I found on Moxfield and got it in the mail. And I think I played one game on it before the bans happened.
Okay.
So I just like
Are
didn't
we
really know
talking
anything about the
about
format,
the
like
bands like J-Lo?
Dockside,
Oh
J-Lo.
no.
So I mean, this is the only deck I had, so I
Uh,
figured I'd still play it. I just like threw in a couple other cards that seemed okay, and played it for a couple months. I did actually did like okay. I would win some games, and then I tried to kind of rework it a little bit to do more what I wanted it to do. I wanted Nas to be a little better. I wanted my draws to be a little more efficient, and I like reworked it. And then I went to a tournament in Colorado Springs, and I did terrible. I had 0 points, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try something else. and then I started playing Sisse for probably a little over half a year
I'll have to
before
tell
I
Okay,
went
you,
back
just
to Timno Dargo.
go
do
for it,
you play
Austin.
any other formats?
I
Or
don't. Um, I've tried limited like drafts and whatever a couple times, but I'm really bad at them, and I've like no idea how to put a deck together
so
while I'm
you
doing
came to the
that.
dark side of Commander and never looked back. I love it.
Yeah, CEDH is a lot of fun. I like it.
No, that's very fair. So far I've known you, you've played Tim Dargo, you've played Sisse. Were there any other decks that you were playing around this time, or were those the ones that you were kind of focusing on?
Those are, for the most part, the decks I've played. I've played
Okay.
like a couple casual games on like Roxai and whatever deck someone else had, like maybe Farm, just like a couple games here and there. But the only decks I've really worked on and like tried to play well are Sisse and Dargo Timna before now.
Right.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say they're necessarily a very similar style unless we're just counting, the thing they have in common, which is Deadpool.
That's pretty much the extent of it.
Hate that
So,
card.
what prompted just going back to playing Dargo more? I remember that you were pretty successful on it once you switched back.
Yeah, I had just kind of kept it on the back burner while I was playing Sisse. Um, at the time, it was a lot of kind of Ristic Slop, like the first wave of it while I was playing CEDH. And Sisse felt a little better at that time, just because of how bad Ristic Study is against the Dargo deck. And I, but I kept working on my Dargo Tender list, and they printed some cards that made it a little more efficient with what I was trying to do, and I just kind of had a better understanding of CEDH and like what I want my deck to do and how to play it and like when to find my windows to push. And eventually, I just like gave it a shot again, and it felt very good um, for a good while until more recently, like the spring, it started to feel less good in my hands, my list at least.
What led you to dropping probably some of the most powerful colors of Magic, black and white, and just going straight mono red?
So I lost some powerful colors, but I gained probably the most broken commander that's ever been printed in Rograkh.
Yeah, that
Um,
checks actually.
so like it's
So,
like it's like playing a five color soup versus Rogsai. Like five color soup, you get other cards. You get an extra spirit guide, and you get Manamorphose and maybe Lotho or Silence. But having Rograkh is just so powerful
Mhm.
that
so
makes up for it.
we're just like, what are the best parts of these decks, and what would happen if we just put them together?
Yeah. So it's
Uh,
it's kind of a thought experiment that just like branched out and turned out to kind of be something.
so kind of going hand in that, when you felt like Dargo Timna wasn't doing as well, and we came to what we're going to currently talk about, which is this very interesting choice of Dargo the Shipwrecker and Rograkh Son of Roga together to be mono red. Um, was it the slot meta where you were feeling like that you weren't breaking through as much with Timna Dargo?
Yeah, I would say kind of once Rog Ishai started becoming prevalent, and just having counter spells on super early and putting Ristic into play super early. And if I ever got into a pod with multiple of those like slop control decks, I would just feel totally useless. My mid range plan would be completely turned off. I could try to find a turn two win, but my deck didn't really consistently do that. And turn three just like felt too late to be pushing a lot of the time.
So this might be a throwback to Twilight, the movie, when one of the vampires, yes, Austin, I see that face. When one of the
Where are you going with
vampires,
this?
oh, you'll see. One of the vampires is like, I'm stronger. But then we have Edward Cullen going, I'm faster. Is that how we approach the slot meta? Where we just
Yeah,
take
it's like if I couldn't keep up in like any sort of mid range, I figure why not just go as fast as I can and like still try to do the same thing.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah.
Talladega Nights.
Exactly. And so that's how were you just stumbling around or were you just with that thought process of like, you know what, let's take Rog?
Um, well, I'd had on my mind that the idea that Dargo could be built in a lot of different color pies outside of Mardu for a while. I knew that people played Dargo Jessica and that was like a deck that kind of did the thing. I've never tried it. Um, and one
Well, there goes.
afternoon, uh,
Sorry, I was gonna say there goes one of my questions. No.
okay, um, one of I was just on the phone one afternoon with a friend, and I don't know how it came up, but we decided to just kind of build Dargo Rograkh. I think we were thinking about Rogashai and how like there are just kind of untapped decks to be built with Rograkh, and we started throwing things in a list, and it just kind of worked better than we thought it might, and just kind of rolled with it from there.
Heck yeah.
So how would you say this is just a pure turbo deck? Like, what can you do other than that? Like, it feels very glass cannony. Are you able to grind it all, or like, could you explain how this deck kind of feels?
Yeah, there is one mid range plan, and it's power balance with Sensei's Divining Top, which is not a great plan in like an actual mid range pod, because if anyone has, a fish or a Rhystic, every time someone casts a one drop, you get to cast a card, but then you have to cast top again, and they also get to cast a card or draw a card. And if it gets into a stack war, someone can easily just trap your top on the
It's like
stack.
trying to win the game with Fairy Mastermind.
Yeah, but much worse.
Yeah.
um, so it's pretty much just turbo, and if I get blown out, I get blown out, and I just sit there and just try to win the next game. Maybe force a draw if I have like a SWAT or a Pyroblast.
So with the meta being so like slop heavy, so control and basically anti-turbo, because I don't actually see a whole lot of Rogsai anymore, fortunately. Uh, what kind of struggles do you feel playing mono red in this type of meta?
Well, kind of like we talked about before, there's no real backup plan or pivot
Mm,
point where I can play mid range. Um, and there's definitely times where I wish I had access to like Grand Abolisher or, um, you know, maybe more counter spells Blue offers or some sort of draw engine. And that can be kind of tough, but at the same time, having I think a really consistent game plan makes things a little easier in certain ways, at least for trying to figure out what I want to do in any given game. Another struggle is kind of being in mono red. The card quality is a little worse
mm.
than if I had access to other colors. So my mulligans can be kind of tough at times, but I try to have the deck kind of built to be able to recover with the card draw that I do have access to, like wheels and Jessica's Will, and kind of just the more one-time use card draw
Hmm.
to make up for it.
And what about what keeps you hooked with playing this type of deck? This like mono red, for lack of a better term, monstrosity. Is it the rush or like the straightforward game plan?
It's a little bit. I think tournaments generally feel pretty good on it because I think there's a little bit less mental fatigue compared to more mid-range decks. Um, but also, I mean, it's straightforward in the sense that I'm just trying to jam as soon as I can. But there
Mhm.
are multiple lines that I can go for, or even a few different game plans. Sometimes I'll try to, storm off. Sometimes I'll just have the combo pieces. And that little bit of variety, I think, is kind of enough to keep me engaged while I get the dopamine rush of, occasionally just being able to jam on turn two and nobody having anything to stop me. Feels pretty good and makes me want to go again.
Here's big fatty, deal with it.
Yeah.
How do you feel this like compares to other mono red decks like Magda or I guess Birgi's kind of died now, but stuff like that.
I would say it's not super comparable to Magda.
Hmm.
Magda does a very specific, like super unique game plan where you're just like obviously avoiding the stack and just having activations. It's a little closer to Bergie at times where you're just kind of storming and like trying to find the next thing. Hopefully, you can land your own Bergie or a similar effect to be able to keep it going the same way that a Bergie deck could.
Do you feed the ever living daylights out of RHYSTIC studies?
Sometimes, sometimes you have to. Like, I'm not
Oh,
just gonna
you're my
sit there and
best
do
friend.
nothing. But I mean, I avoid it. Sometimes, you cut your losses and accept that if you're like if you have a full storm game plan,
Hmm.
that you're not going to be able to push through a Ristic study, and you just try to get to a draw or get to a point where resources are spent. Maybe a Ristic study gets blown up, or you draw into a red blast. Um, but it is a little. It can be a little more, direct, where you just in your opening hand you have the Bergie and you have the Goblin Bombardment, and you don't have to cast a bunch of spells. You can just cast your combo pieces. It's a lot more deterministic than
Hmm.
say like a Bergie would be, which helps if someone has a draw engine down to not give them a million cards to be able to win.
Can you pivot with either commander to go for a win? Like, say you have win lines focused more so on Dargo and then some on Rograkh.
So actually, all of my win lines, except for Dualcaster Mage Molten Duplication, are revolved around Dargo. So Rograkh is really just there to accelerate the game plan at this point because I mean he's great for all of the generic Rograkh broken things like he turns on your Mox Amber, your SWAT, your Flare, everything. But in addition, he helps Dargo's game plan a lot
Hmm.
because normally you're counting to three pieces of sack fodder in addition to your mana and your combo pieces. But you always have one in the command zone, and you always have a way to trigger your Bergie or your Runaway Steamkin, or have more mana with your Relic of Legends. And that's what I've found to be most useful. I think there could be a world where I add in like Cloudstone Curio or some other way to combo with Rograkh, but it would need more support and I think be just kind of distracting from my game plan of putting Dargo combos on the stack.
I think Cloudstone Curio would be a really weird but really cool uh, tech card that no one's expecting.
Catch people off guard for sure.
Yeah, when was the last time you
Yeah.
saw a Cloudstone Curio in CEDH?
I'm not sure if I've ever
Uh,
seen one actually.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about it, but I'm not good.
I mean, I played it in Holland, but that's a completely different story.
Fair and understandable. So, Nick, uh, how often do you get underestimated at the table when you sit down with this commander pairing?
Especially lacking like hard card advantage or like stack going over top of the stack like Magna does.
I definitely have a fair amount of brewer's advantage when I sit down at a lot of tables, and people don't know what to expect. out of my deck, which is obviously to my benefit because I don't want them to be mulliganing for counter spells or ways to stop me. But there are times where I've won a game and word kind of spreads around a little bit because I'm playing a very strange deck that people think is interesting. And then I'll sit down at the next table and the story might have gone around where the someone will talk about how they caught a fish like this big and then it turns into that big and that big.
Mhm.
And like in Milwaukee, I won a game on my second turn after mulling to 4 just because I kept like a reasonable 4 and like top decked the nuts twice. And then I started sitting down at tables and they would be like, this deck wins on turn 2 every game. And I had like won one turn in game ever. So I lose a little advantage there when that happens. But for the most part, it's has a lot of brewers advantage, and it's kind of just an interesting way to start the pod in like a lighthearted manner because people are why are you playing mono red partners? It's just like kind of a silly,
Mhm.
fun thing.
So until like the wins start happening that day, or somebody gets word of you from other players, it's a little bit more easygoing, but then they start turning up the respect level once they get that information.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier to start the day.
Note to self: see Nick and Pod mulligan for interaction.
So outside of slop, what are some of this deck's weaknesses? Like, what are you not hoping to see? Is stacks a hard matchup, or is it just the mid-range? Do you turbo better than other turbo decks? Like, what do you want to be against, and what do you do not want to be against?
It's a good question. It kind of depends on seat order and the specific deck more than the archetype. Like I don't mind playing against like a Kinnan as much as like a Rog control deck because they're gonna have those extra pieces on as soon as turn 1, like every time. Uh, but stack decks can go either way. I'm hoping to get underneath them before they can deploy anything that's too detrimental to me, like like a hard rule of law that doesn't let me Dargo loop, or um, like a Drannith Magistrate that just shuts off my entire deck pretty much. But I don't mind some light stacks because the deck has a lot of redundant ways to win the game. So if it's a deck that's just going to drop pieces like Torpor Orb or Curse Totem, like those will throw me off a little bit, but I can play through them. And if they slow down the other decks, I don't really care if those are in the pod. And I think my favorite matchups are definitely other against other turbo decks or kind of parasitic decks because this deck can consistently push by turn 3, but sometimes I can get turn 2 or turn 1 wins, and I'll take my chances against like a Natali or a Rowan any day of the week where they like need a like Rowan needs a turn 3 usually, or Atali needs to flip well. Uh, those decks aren't really going to have the ability to stop me most of the time. So if I can just race them to a win or uh, hope that they somehow whiff and I get to push next without them feeding, a RHYSTIC or a fish to find answers for me from the blue player, then I'm pretty happy.
All right. And I heard you were able to win like super early. Like you can win turn 1?
I can. I think a lot of CEDH decks do like have the theoretical ability to, but I've goldfished, you know, Timna Dargo is another list I played a lot and goldfished a lot. And I think I've goldfished 2 turn 1 wins ever on that deck. Never won a game on turn 1. This deck, I goldfished a turn 1. I goldfish a turn 1 win like at least 1% of my wins, probably. Maybe a little less, but it's like a fair amount. I'm not surprised when I am goldfishing and I find a turn 1 win. And that game was actually my winning in for top 16 at the Siege, or top 40, sorry, not 16. And I kept a hand that had an Infernal Plunge, a Gemstone Caverns with a card to pitch, a Seething Song, a Molten Duplication, a Dualcaster Mage, and a Goblin Welder. So worst case scenario with that hand, I can cast a turn 1 Goblin Welder and Rograkh, and turn 2 plunge one of them, Seething Song, and then Molten Dualcaster the other one. Because Molten Duplication has to have an initial target. And then I top decked a Mana Vault on my turn 1 and was able to put together a win, and none of the decks had any interaction up at that point. And it turned out I was pretty lucky because all 3 other decks in the pod were going to be pushing on their turn 2, and I was in seat 4. So
Jesus.
That was a good time to have a turn 1 win.
I have only ever seen a turn 1 win once in my life, and it was a Rogsai when I was seat 1 and they were seat 3. I had the answer in my hand, but I decided to progress my board state and play out Chromox and tapped out.
Yeah.
So I feel for the other decks in your pod.
And you won that game on 4 seat.
Yeah. 4
See?
seat turn 1.
See, very possible. So what kind of opening hands are you looking for in your games? Like, what do you want to see? How low will you go on your mulligans to kind of get those cards?
So with commanders that are powerful but don't inherently do anything on their own, I need to find like a real game plan in my mulligans. And it can vary in the pod whether I think I need to find a turn 2 win like really aggressively, or if I can keep what'll probably be a turn 3 push. So earlier on in hands, I'm looking for maybe combo pieces along with mana and sack fodder for Dargo. But I'm happy to keep like something impactful. Like if I can dump a bunch of mana and then wheel on turn 2, then I'll likely be able to find something else to do and maybe push on turn 3. But the lower I get on mulligans, the less ability I'm going to have to have the combo pieces and the mana and the sack fodder. So I'm looking for just kind of an impactful way to get back in the game. Like if I can find an early Jessica's Will, or a Wheel of Fortune, or Misfortune, or whatever, then that's more what I'm looking for once I get down to, like 4 or less most of the time. I'm willing to mulligan very low. Like if I go to 2 and I have like maybe combo pieces and a couple lands, but would have to draw into, sack fodder and like 5 more mana, I'm not going to keep that hand. I'll go to 1, try to find, a Jessica's Will and high roll into finding, lands or other acceleration off the top. So I think I need to mulligan really aggressively to just find either something impactful or just the outright full win in earlier hands.
Is it pretty easy to convert a win off of, like you say, you go to a low mulligan? Pretty easy to convert a win off after a wheel or something?
Yeah. Especially if I can develop some permanent mana. Like if I go to say 3 and I have land, Soul Ring, Wheel of Fortune, that's a great hand because I have turn 1 Soul Ring, into turn 2 Wheel. I'll probably find a land and maybe be able to develop a little bit after the wheel. And then turn 3, I'm untapping with probably at least 4 mana and multiple pieces of sack fodder with a rock and Rograkh, and just can kind of go from there. Maybe I'll have flashback to be able to wheel again now that I have more mana up, or I'll have a combo piece and the ability to find like a treasonous ogre and make enough mana to use like some other very expensive tutor because I'm in mono red and don't have a lot of those.
So that was going to be the next thing, right? Your tutors feel like, literally Imperial Recruiter and Gamble. I mean, obviously there's like Goblin Engineer, right? And probably a few other things, but you do have to gamble with this deck.
Oh yeah.
Um, outside of those, are you primarily using wheels or are there any other like card engines? I think one of the ones that you mentioned was that Avendo Brush Razor, which is a 2 generic 1 red, 2/2 Insect Warrior. Whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, exile the top card of your library during your turn. As long as you sacrifice a non-token permanent, you may play cards exiled with this creature and tap, sack a land at 2 red.
Yeah. It is a lot of those wheel effects and impulse draws, but Avendo Brush Razor is specifically a pretty great card for this deck because it just does a lot of things. It is not the fastest card because it's 3 mana and has summoning sickness, but once it doesn't, then it's a mana dork. It's card advantage. It's a combo piece with a Phyrexian Altar to just let me exile my deck and put together a win from there. Um, I can grab it off an Imperial Recruiter. So that's one way that I can dig for cards. It's like one of the stormier ways that I can push for a win in this deck. But I have other creatures that kind of help me look for cards too, like Dragon's Rage Channeler. If I'm just dumping rocks, just throwing everything in my graveyard until I find something useful. I have pseudo wheels that are one-sided that are I think really powerful in this deck, like Zenith Festival, which is a harmonized card for red X that lets me cast it from my graveyard, tap Dargo to pay for X of 7, and then exile 7 cards off the top of my library and be able to play them until the end of the next turn, which is really great because I get to keep the cards that are in my hand and also get a 7 new cards. Or Fire Giant's Fury is similar, except with combat damage for Dargo. And yeah, really it's just digging or using my. I have a few other tutors aside from, Gamble and Imp Recruiter, but they're very specific, which is one reason why the deck has to be so combo dense, so I can get different pieces. Like I want to be able to get Altar of the Brood to have a Phyrexian Altar outlet off of my Tezzeret or my Urza Saga, or I need to have an artifact version of every combo piece to get off of Inventor's Fair or Reckless Handling. So being combo dense helps both with my limited tutors and with me drawing 7 cards and being able to find a combo piece that also contributes to my game plan with like Bergie or Relic of Legends making mana.
There feels like a lot of synergy in this deck. So cards like Will of the Jeskai, I know this was mentioned in Mecha, a VV player's interview on Winnanen, being a really good card, but Will of the Jeskai, Zenith Festival, another one they mentioned, you can dump it, then be able to harmonize it off your Dargo so you don't have to pay it into the initial cost and get that spell reduction. Will of the Jeskai, if you have Rog out, allowing you to refill your hand at least with 5 cards, and then a lot of these being like rituals or just more wheels, being able to go a little bit further. I don't know, very, very cool. A lot of sack effects too.
Yeah. Uh, and the sac effects go, I mean, they work in multiple ways a lot of the time. Like Lion's Eye Diamond, specifically with Zenith Festival, is awesome because you can crack it for 3 red, put your Zenith Festival in your graveyard, and then you have the mana both to cast that and cast Dargo, as well as you've knocked off a sacrifice to get your Dargo out. Or you have kind of a lot of ways to use your graveyard and get things back. Like you mentioned, Will of the Jeskai, that only gets instants and sorceries, but I have things like Molten Gatekeeper, which I can return from the graveyard to the battlefield for 1 red, or Zenith Festival, obviously, or Underworld Breach. So when I'm sacking things to Dargo, or sacking my Dargo to my Altar of Dementia to mill things, or maybe sacking my like 3/3 DRC to mill 3 cards, or sacking tokens to my grinding station, I'm kind of turning on multiple things, both by discounting Dargo and by filling up my graveyard to find resources for later.
Right. I don't know if you mentioned Moonsilver Key, but Moonsilver Key, sack it, go get one of your outlets. You
Mm-hmm.
get the Dargo reduction as well.
Yes, that
Um,
card is very good. Could get either of my mana combo pieces, or just go get like a mana vault and kind of help me get to the combo piece that way.
One of the regular questions that we get on our deck tech videos is what makes your deck unique? Unique, I'm sorry. Do you have any notable cards in your list, or I guess this isn't really meta, so there's not really a stock list, but I guess more personal cards that you feel close to.
Sure. I guess I mentioned, but didn't super dive into Fire Giant's Fury. I think it
Hmm.
might be one of my favorite cards on the list because it also buffs Dargo +2/+2, and then you swing and you get to look at 9 cards. So that's pretty cool. I like Power Bounce. That's really fun, especially getting it with Sensei's Divining Top. It's not, the best card, but it's kind of an engine. But I would say, I think even if I didn't play it, I would play Sensei's Divining Top because that feels just like a really efficient way to look at more cards in mono red for just 1 mana to cast it, and then maybe 1 mana to look at the top 3, which is sometimes all I need, while being able to get it off of like a Tezzeret or an Urza Saga, convert those into card advantage. Uh, I think Last Agni Kai is another really cool card that doesn't see a lot of play because it's 2 mana instant that lets me have Dargo fight another creature I don't control. So I get to remove something and then make excess mana or red mana in excess equal to the excess power that was done. Uh, so I get to do some really cool things that just kind of aren't good enough for a lot of other lists or don't synergize well.
Is there ever a world where you're grabbing Sensei's top off of Tezzeret or Urza Saga over something like Altar of the Brood?
Yeah, plenty. Um, like Altar of the Brood is a combo piece, and that could be really helpful, but it doesn't do anything at all on its own if I don't have the
Hmm.
Phyrexian Altar, and it can be kind of hard to find that combo piece. So I'd rather, if I have a bunch of mana, go get a Sensei's Divining Top and look at 3 cards, try to find something to do with my mana, and
Hmm.
maybe get a wheel to refresh my hands and find combo pieces that way.
so I believe we kind of touched on already the test hands. What you're typically looking for is a way to convert a win or just a way to get back into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is that typically the method that you go for there?
Yeah. um, you're really just you have to be kind of flexible based on what you're looking at, and in an opening hand, in the sense that like it might be stormy, you might have to take your chances on just a wheel, or maybe you keep some combo pieces and you just hope that you draw the mana to cast them. um,
Right,
but
like a way to
I,
convert.
yeah, there's a lot of kind of hoping for certain top decks in this deck, I think. But I try to keep hands that are praying to draw things that have more outlets, like, or I have more outs for. So like I'd rather hope to draw a ritual than hope to draw like a Relic of Legends, which have, like 3 pieces in the deck versus I have, 20 lands and then more rituals and rocks.
Right. It looks
So
like there is a lot of redundancy in the list, though. Do you ever feel like you don't have sufficient mana during a game, or do you feel like you've pretty much can generate the mana that you need to go through a win line pretty quickly?
it can go either way, but I think generally speaking, the card or the deck struggles more with cards than with mana, because of having Rograkh and sometimes Dargo in the command zone. Because Rograkh so consistently can turn on the ability to have 3 mana by turn 2 with Springleaf Drum and Mox Amber and Infernal Plunge and Paradise Mantle that I just really need something to do with the mana a lot of the time. That's why I'm on such a low land count, because I just don't feel like I need to be consistently hitting my land drops if I can just turbo a mana and have the reasonably decent rituals that red offers, like Desperate Ritual and Seething Song and Jessica's Will, as well as I get mana from my combo pieces like Phyrexian Altar and Relic of Legends, Runaway Steamkin. So I think mana tends to be pretty solid just because of Rograkh and what red offers.
Right. And then as far as it goes for like going for your wins, outside of Dualcaster Mage and Twin Flame, looks like it's a lot of just Impact Trimmers effects or just the sacks. You got Alter of the Brood, you got your Molten Gatekeeper, and then you also have Goblin Bombardment, I
Yeah, you
believe
can't
I'm
forget
correct.
about chucking the big man at the peoples. Just ah.
Having with a Bergie or tapping with the Relic Legends. Um, Outside of those win lines, is there anything else that you've typically pulled off with a list like this?
um, Nothing too crazy. Like you really have the 4 main Dargo combo pieces. You have the Bergie effects that make mana when you cast Dargo, and then you have the sack effects that kill people, like Goblin Bombardment, and then you have the sack effects that make mana, like Phyrexian Altar, that combo with those impact tremor effects like Weftstalker Ardent or Grape Shot, which is a little different, but with Phyrexian Altar you have Infinite Storm. So nothing like too crazy, other than I have to try and figure out how to kill people without letting them have a chance to do anything about it first. Like there have been times where I've pushed kind of into a RHYSTIC study and milled them out with like an Altar of the Brood, and then I have to try and not let them win on their upkeep because I have to pass the turn. So maybe I loop like a Sundering Eruption to destroy all their lands and use like a Goblin Welder to erase their or put their useful artifacts in their graveyard and give them artifacts that don't do anything. Uh, More recently than I should have discovered, I can find a Spider Punk to like win through a One Ring effect. So it's a lot of the same combos, but there sometimes I have to find ways to make them work in weirder conditions.
It sounds like you're well versed in being creative in either taking out your opponents or finding a way to win with this list in mono red.
I want to back up a second. What the heck do you mean by looping Sundering Eruption?
I heard that too.
There's one game. Um, I think I hadn't yet realized that I had access to Spider Punk to be able to win through a One Ring, and I'd milled them out. I milled out my opponent with an Altar of the Brood, killed my other two opponents with a Grape Shot, and I had to give my opponent that had drawn a bunch of cards with a RHYSTIC study an upkeep, but they had a bunch of mana. I figured they would be able to, Born Upon a Wind, probably put a wind on the stack. But I had access to most of my deck at the time, so I just casted an Underworld Breach with a pretty full graveyard and cast the Sundering Eruption to blow up their lands. They had basic lands, which made me have to cast Sundering Eruption a couple extra times. But I just get rid of, all the things I don't need in my graveyard and give them nothing on their upkeep.
Nice. So
I never want to play against you. No, I'm kidding.
It's fair.
no, this is a very sweet list, and I don't know how many people are playing it, but it's very cool. It might be something else to try out. How would you relate this? Does this just still feel like a Dargo deck? It sounds like it from the description. You just get less less effective tutors or less uh cost efficient tutors as well.
Mhm. Definitely is pretty, I think, transferable Dargo deck. I think you could probably put it in the hands of someone who's played, Mardu or probably closer to Jund Dargo, uh, and they could figure it out after kind of seeing what mulligans look like and some of the weird combo pieces that I run. But it's a little different in the sense that it's stormier because you don't have those good tutors. So it's like maybe a little more relatable to like a Ral or somewhere in between like a Ral and a Dargo deck. Whereas you just, you look for wheels and just try to find the next thing. And then it differs from that in the sense that you still have your classic Dargo combos and you put deterministic wins on the stack after, drawing like a few extra cards instead of getting to a point where you're just like chaining instants of sorceries and casting a bunch for free. But I feel my play patterns, I think, transfer pretty well coming from Mardu to this.
So if you were to sell a player on this, what would you tell them to convince them this is the new Dargo way?
This is the way.
I mean, I think I would talk about how, powerful Rograkh is for the deck, or for Dargo specifically, and how kind of how fast you really can go when you find those good hands. And the deck is just it's really fun. It doesn't have a mid range plan like some other Dargo decks, but it still gives you a little variety in the ways that you find your wins. And also, I think probably some people that are more interested in the brewing of decks would find interesting is this deck is so little played right now that I think there's a lot of work to be done and ways to experiment with this deck that is just like pretty exciting and new.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing, right? It's like there's so many opportunities to be able to find cool interactions in Magic and also be successful with them. I think we see it here and there when we see the, variations in the meta, and sure, we see a lot of the staple or similar cards, but we are seeing tweaks and changes. I mean, look how prevalent Split Second is, right? And I remember people talking trash about Angel's Grace in the past, and it feels like it's now being slotted in all the decks that can utilize it. So,
Yeah.
It's the Secrets of Strixhaven fancy version. That's what's bringing it back.
yeah. I feel like it's great when we see innovations in gameplay. It's just, yeah, new cool things.
Yeah.
Um, so the other thing is too, if you were to get a card, right, that would be perfect for your list that they would print, what would you hope to see?
Let's see. I not really sure what it would look like, but I do like where they've been a design space that they've been exploring where you can really abuse your large creatures in an efficient manner. Because cards like the Last Agni Kai and Zenith Festival are relatively new prints coming out of Avatar, and I don't remember what set the Harmonized was, but it wasn't that long ago.
Hmm.
So I think I'd like to see another card, kind of like Zenith Festival or Fire Giant's Fury, that lets me get to just abuse Dargo's size for like 2 or 3 mana and get an advantage that the rest of the table doesn't get like they do when I wheel.
Fair enough.
Gotta use the
Now,
thick boy.
Yes, absolutely.
heavily using it for this list. Now, you placed 15th at Twisted Power, a 172 player event. You placed 19th at the Siege, a 308 player event. Is this the list that you feel confident still playing in the future and taking to new events?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll I don't want to toot my own horn, but I also will point out that I got 19th, funny enough, all at the Siege and at the Siege Redemption on this deck. So it's felt relatively consistent, maybe not game to game, but tournament to tournament over the course of Swiss in these bigger events where people kind of have to be a little more greedy and put wins on the stack in order to make top cut. And I don't really have any plans to put it down anytime soon because it's still really fun. And if I'm still winning games on it, then I think I'll just keep trying it out. Maybe try some to work on my tweak my list a little bit, but it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great to hear, and that's a fair response. Um, but have we considered any new Dargo ideas? Any new partner combinations?
That's a that's a good question. I definitely am interested in trying other Dargo decks. Uh, I'm not sure what else to try. I kind of want to try all of them. Maybe John's would be a reasonable place to go from this while I'm sticking with the Turbo Dargo. But I think most Dargo decks are very underexplored, and I think there's a lot out there that you can do with them, especially adding other colors, like adding blue or adding green. Uh, and I plan on at least eventually kind of trying to experiment with all of them, maybe even the 2 color ones, because I think Dargo's powerful enough that he kind of just grants you the ability to get away with playing weirder colors or weirder partners.
Fair enough. We just need another set that releases more partners for us.
Yeah.
That's never happening. I'm sorry to tell you.
I don't know.
I do know.
All
Also,
right.
I fact checked. The fact that you actually placed 19th in both events is insane. The coincidental on
Pretty
that,
funny.
sorry.
Nick, is there anything that you would like to bring up before we come to a close?
Um, Not a lot. I just want to encourage people to maybe try weirder decks, whether they're Dargo decks, which I'm biased towards, or even other Rograkh decks, because Rograkh Ishai is, in my opinion, one of the strongest decks in the format, and that wasn't really played until a few months ago.
It's
So I think
true.
there's just a lot of brewing space and potential out there for people to try.
And
I
they've been
was
around for a while.
Yeah,
I was so
long time.
proud of you for a second calling out or giving a shout out to Fringe Decks, and then you started talking about Dargo, and I cried a little bit.
Well, if you stayed with us this long, please consider giving this episode a like, follow, subscribe, or comment, depending on how you found us. Check out our Discord and socials in the link below if you're interested in one of our playmats featuring the sick logo by Fox Tattoos. I can't point, so Austin will. Let us know. Be kind to each other and be kind to yourselves. It's only a game. And also, in addition to that, check out Nick's Rograkh Dargo list.